We are live.
Howdy, everybody, again.
So I don't know. We should probably pull it up on my channel just to see who's in chat.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Where the heck did we go? Oh, there you are. It was like I lost it. It was like on my toolbar. It's like, where'd you go?
Okay, let me go over to my channel. Just make sure that who we've got in here. All right.
All right, I'm going to bring it up to the lot. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't look like I'm not showing anybody yet, but we might have lost everybody once you did. Let's see if I enabled chat. Okay. It should be chat should be enabled. So, but yeah. So, well, sorry about that. Let's see here. So for everybody that is just watching now, we've done an emergency switch to my channel for the show this week. For whatever reason, there must have been an update on my computer that had made it so I can't open links to get into invites for Hangout. I was only able to start one on my channel. So we've had a bunch of folks that were over on Rusty's channel. And it looks like some of them have come over. Actually, it looks like we got Hot Dice Miniatures. Hello. We've got Dan Booman, and we've got Stryker. Hey, everybody. Thanks. Sorry if you guys were over on the other channel and all the confusion today. I blame it on Windows. I don't know. Some update happened, and I was not able to respond to his invites.
I was going to say,
I'm desperate for views on my channel. That's the real answer. No.
Well, it's the same exact thing. It's like, remember when I had all the trouble with mine and I couldn't use my laptop? Yeah. It did an update, and then it wouldn't let me do a live stream.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. So it's
I'm going to have to do some testing with you offline this week or something, and just kind of make sure we get it settled. But at least, so we're halfway through the show already. But and so that's unfortunate. But yeah. So thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. That's in the room. And so Rusty, what's going on? We'll just start the show as if nothing bad happened.
Well, you know, it's like in the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes that we have. I've kind of was talking to some of the folks that were over there that were watching it. It's like I spent since the last show we announced that we had the Musty Wargamers Old Hammer Painting Challenge, and let's do this like I'd never done this before. And here we go. All right, you know, it's like I have all the murder wenches.
Yeah, they look awesome.
It's like
very nice.
Finished them all up. You know, they're all ready to slit throats and carve their symbols into everybody's skulls.
I love the 80s hairband hairdos. So do you have a bit of a musty drink tonight? I know that I'm really ready for mine after all this half hour of stuff.
I was telling everybody, it's like I have the musty war drink of the night. It's Tullamore Dew, Irish whiskey. And I was going to crack this thing open.
Looks like you're practically christening it.
It is. It's brand new.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
It hasn't even been opened yet, so here we go.
All right.
It was like I didn't want to open something that without you being around, so.
You start feeling lonely on camera.
Yeah.
Well, I will quickly show what I've got here, as you've shown yours. I've got one that's been christened quite a few times. I actually showed you this the other day.
Yeah.
But this is the Weiser's 18. I like Weiser's Canadian whiskey. You know, as an American, I'd never heard of it, but then when I moved here long time ago, I quite liked it. And this one's a smooth one. You can actually drink it neat kind of nicely. I drink the lower shelf stuff as a cowboy drink occasionally, but that's usually the one I would mix. So, yeah. So
I thought that was a brand new bottle that you just bought because we were talking with. It's like, that's a brand new bottle. You've been enjoying it way too much.
No, that was an advertisement. When I showed you the picture of what I was talking about, that's
okay.
This is not brand new.
Well, this smells good.
Yeah.
Oh, this smells like kind of like fresh fruit, raisins. kind of a cherry smell to it.
Very nice. So, what do you think?
That's good. Yummy.
So I've got. I actually showed a video today of kind of what I've been doing. Although I've actually started painting some bases up, but I can't really show it too well on camera here. But I've got my Beastman that I'm working on.
Yeah.
I've got some of the green on there. Let me click on here. And so, yeah, I've got this sort of my more reddish color. I'm going to be painting the shields old style. I'm taking my time with those. And this is one, he's a little more brown. Yeah, so I'm working on these guys right now, working away at the challenge. I put up a video just a couple hours ago, I guess. But that's really all I've got to show today. That's my entry for this month's challenge that we're working on. It's been really great to see a lot of the people's entries. Like I know Stig of the Dump on his YouTube channel completed his and did his high elf stuff, which is kind of neat. I know Bill's been putting up stuff and Dan's been putting up stuff. So it's really been great.
Yeah, it's been pretty decent to see everybody's stuff that they've been putting up. After seeing Stig put his massive army up on display with his videos, like, oh yeah, that looks. And then after I was digging through all my boxes today, trying to find my movement trays.
Yeah.
And it's like epic fail. I have no idea where they're at. And I come to realize I have a whole bunch of high elves that I don't know where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably with the rest of my high elf army.
You're kind of getting inspired by the challenge. You're kind of seeing other people's stuff and you're looking for yours that you haven't done.
Well, I have it's like if you remember the third edition, the very first box set they came out with the goblins and the high elves in it way back in like 92, 93.
I'm more familiar with the Rogue Trader stuff and the earlier stuff. I actually played it back then, but I didn't play Fantasy that long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the very first actual Fantasy box set that they put out. That's what they had. Mm-hmm. And it was the very first plastic miniatures they had for the high elves. And I had 2 boxes of those, and I painted that army up. So I had a whole bunch of spearmen and archers and stuff like that. They were all painted up.
Mm-hmm.
That was my high elf army. And then when this one box set that came out, I think it was the last Fantasy box set they had before they changed to Sigmar. And that's where they had the Skaven and the high elves in it.
Okay.
So I was going to add them to what I already had. So, but now I'm realizing, where is my army?
Well, when you collect that much stuff over time, it's been known to happen where you kind of misplace things, right?
Yeah, it's like if we talk about our one subject here, where it's like overextending yourself.
Yeah. We'll go into that. That is our first one to talk about.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think? What do you want to do? Do you want to try to approach the 2 today and just run a little over, or what?
Let's just do one subject tonight.
Okay. So why don't we do that one? So, our first one for the evening today was going to be overextending yourself in games, and really sort of like the impact of that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as far as how much do you feel for you is overextending, how much is too many games to play. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe we have a little bit of a different twist on it tonight in that regard. So what are and actually fill me in, because I know this is the one, we had a bit of an abrupt beginning tonight to the show, but I think that's pretty much what we said. This was your topic you suggested.
Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's like everything that you can do to overextend yourself, either playing too many game systems or buying too many different armies in a game system. So either or, it's like it can result in the same thing where you just can't. What gave me the idea was Nick over Idic Beer over at his channel. And he was doing one of his live streams and he was talking. He's like, he had the new Chaos book or something that came out for 40K. And he was talking about, well, I have a whole bunch of armies I haven't played yet. And it's like, do I buy the books for the armies I haven't been playing? And everybody is kind of like saying, no, don't don't buy the books. Don't worry about it because you're overextending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like what my take is on it. If they go back to 7th edition, I had all these armies and I bought all the books for every single army. And
Which game? Like 40K or fantasy or
40K?
Okay.
And fantasy too. You can look, if you look behind, if it wasn't for this thing behind me, I have my bookshelf sitting there, and it is like the whole lower is nothing but one side is 40K codexes, and they kind of overrun is more 40K codexes, like a whole bunch of, it's like I reach into the drawer and I got a whole bunch of 40K codexes because I couldn't put them all on the shelf. And I have all these armies. Yeah. And I bought all these codexes, and then they turned around and changed it. And now it's like hundreds of dollars, actually more than hundreds of dollars, of books that are just, if you wanted to go into a game store and play, it's like they don't do anything for you. Mm-hmm. And so for individuals, I find come to realize that I have severely overextended when it comes to buying too many armies and probably getting into too many different game systems also. Mm-hmm. Where when you look at it, it's like, how many games can you play over the course of a year or a month? Is, you have your favorites. Now, I just think about it. It's like we play Dystopian Wars. We're playing Epic this weekend. We got play BattleTech. We play Flames of War. I just start rattling off War Machine, Hordes, all these different systems. And when you play so many different ones, you come to the realization you can't play them every week.
Right.
If you only get together once a week or every other week, you're going to have games that just sit there for months on end. And that if you get into the severe thing of, I got to have this army, I got to have this army. And if you're like me, you like to, all right, let's say you want to play Flames of War. Well, I got to have a German army, and I got to have a British army, or I got to have an American army. Oh, I got to have a Soviet army, or, because you got to have somebody fight against each other. And pretty soon you're sitting there with 2, 3, 4 armies. And then if you only play every 2, 3 months, 4 months, or 6 months, you're just sitting on armies. And like I said today, I was digging through all my fantasy stuff, trying to find some movement trays. I'm just looking through, move this bag of miniatures. Oh, these bag of miniatures. This box of miniatures. And it's like, go through this box. And I just realized I got hundreds and hundreds. I got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miniatures that are just sitting in boxes doing nothing. When it comes to, if you want to see the poster child for overextended, that's me.
Okay. So, are you sure they're doing nothing? They're not coming out at night, when you can't see them? You never know, right? So, well,
you're creeping me out here, man.
Yeah, well, and we've talked, I've talked quite a bit about the philosophy that I subscribe to, that I've labeled core games, having core games. And that strategy for me is a way to combat against this, of trying to not overextend. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm overly successful and that I do get into new things. And that's always a breakdown of it, in the sense, because in the extreme, I'm kind of satisfied. I have 3 or 4 things that I play a lot, and I'm regularly and expanding upon terrain, other armies and things. And that's what I hope to be like my kind of core games. But in the end, I do still buy other things. And, we talk about overextending ourselves, and you mentioned it about having a number of miniatures, and then you mentioned it as well about having to buy lots of rules. There's a lot of other aspects to it. I mean, the miniatures implies painting time. So we only have so much painting time. So every time we get into something else, it requires a block of time, sometimes of some significant painting, unless it's like Star Wars X-Wing or Armada or something like that. One of these games that comes, pre-painted or doesn't require painting. And those can be good for that reason sometimes if you're interested in the game. But I find for me, I have an issue with rule headspace in that I like to be comfortable in the rules that I play, and I don't like to feel that I need to look up stuff all the time, even though I need to look stuff up. I like to feel comfortable in my basic approach to the game. And sometimes, like while I'm painting up an army, I do oftentimes like to have a rule book that I'm reading, like getting into a game if it's new, and just sort of having that inspiration from both a background perspective as well as rules. But what I don't like is when I'm in the middle of painting for a new game and I've already got 2 people asking me to get into something else, and then they're passing me rule books and I'm like reading so many rule sets over time. It's really not for me. I mean, I'm a bit of a contradiction because I love game mechanics and I love a good game, and I like to really in-depth analyze something in my head. But I find if I go too broad and I just add too many rule sets, then it takes away the time and the headspace of what I'm trying to actually focus on. And so for me, money is an issue. Painting time is definitely an issue. But then also, like, my headspace for all this stuff is kind of an issue too, because as much as there are a lot of unique games out there, and I can rattle some off. Like, I don't have Test of Honor, but I always thought Test of Honor was good. When I played it, I really enjoyed it. It has its own sort of set of rules and interesting mechanics, and unique kind of game that came out in my mind in some ways. And there are a lot of games like that come out that really do kind of shine in some way that I kind of look at them as an isolated thing that would be great to get into. But a lot of games are very similar in some ways too, and they have like little differences, but they're not drastically different enough to play 10 of the same type of genre, in my opinion. And to give you an example, like there was a game recently that came out for French Indian War, American War of Independence on one of the blue books in Osprey, Rebels and Patriots, and looks like a great game. And no prejudgment or anything. As a matter of fact, I think Bill's on, and he's actually got some videos up on it. But yeah. I haven't really played Sharp's Practice well enough to my liking. Like, I really have a lot more that I want to play of it. And I've been playing Muskatomics forever, I'm still going to be playing that. And so I've actually kind of held off on picking it up, not because of anything other than I have so much unexplored for Sharp's Practice, and I like the game so much that I just can't see even trying to learn another set of rules, to be honest. And so I had decided not to pick it up, even though a lot of people are enjoying it, it seems. So back to you.
The Rebels and Patriots you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I looked at it, and I even went so far as to see how much it would cost to pick up a set of rules just to peruse them to see what it's like. Mm-hmm. But you're right. It's like you get to the point where I got a good memory when it comes to rules, but it gets to the point where you have to sort of flesh something out to really make something work correctly. Mm-hmm. Because if you start overlapping and you're sitting there, it's like, wait a minute. How's that? It's like you get certain rules you don't play all the time, or game systems. You have to really start crunching through the memory core to make it work. Where there are certain game systems, which your core ones, it's like if I'm playing BattleTech, I don't even think about it. I just do it.
Yeah.
And the only time I question myself when somebody asks me a question is like, you sure? Okay, I'm starting to doubt myself now, but there's certain. It's like it used to be. That's the way it was with 40K too. It's like I lived and breathed it. Fantasy was the same way, and today I was just sitting there thinking about it, like fantasy. And I was like, I don't think I know how to play fantasy now. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where I haven't played it in 3-4 years now, and It's like, okay, I have to go back and read it because it was like I'm no longer playing it. It's like I took that memory card out and it's like that memory it's gone. It was just taking up space that no longer needed.
Yeah.
So exactly. It's one of those things where your brain actually physically seems like it gets rid of stuff that it deems unnecessary.
Yeah. And so I think everybody's going to be a little different in the way they approach this. I mean, there are a lot of folks that really enjoy playing a lot of different games and playing different stuff and always trying stuff new. And, I don't claim to say that that's a bad way to do things. I mean, it's really whatever floats your boat. I'm starting to kind of view my my approach to adopting a new game as sort of a cycle. And whereas there were times when I only played, like, let's say Warhammer 40K and then started playing Musket and Tomahawks, those are the only two things I had. And if I started looking at something else, my cycle was kind of quick. Like I would pick up, let's say, one of the D&D miniature board games and just like paint the whole thing and like play it. And, you know, I could pick up something and pick up a small squad for, let's say, In Her Majesty's Name, and it's like 7 miniatures that I paint for, and it was a really thin book I could read and whatever, and my cycle time was really quick. It's like, okay, I'm going to look at this, my friend wants to play this, I'm going to paint up this small thing, read the small book, and there we go. As years go by, those things really add up, as you mentioned. Like there's just lots of stuff in storage and on the shelf. In some cases, we can reuse them. And I think, I haven't looked through the comments yet, but I think I saw some people talking about reusing stuff like Bretonians for historical. And that is one of the nice things, you know, particularly on the miniature challenge, is that you can sometimes reuse things. But now, personally, I'm trying to like lengthen my cycle time when I approach new things. Basically, instead of just going out, buying the miniatures, getting it, committing to it really quickly, and then like as I'm doing that, like having other friends talk to me about other stuff to get into and like starting to grab those too. Now I'm looking at, like, as an example, the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons battle system. I've been talking on my channel for a couple of years about doing. I've had the book since I was a teenager. Never really played it. It's in great condition. You know, I've never gotten rid of it. So I've committed to this in my head, and I'm kind of thinking about how I want to do this. Like, how do I want to immerse myself back into the AD&D universe using this sort of 15 mil miniatures and exploring that. And so over time now, I've started to collect some miniatures. They're in the bag up there. You know, I think I showed a couple friends. I may have showed you, Rusty. I got like a giant from Ralpartha, you know, that I'm, you know, that really work well in 15 mil. I'm starting to collect some things, starting to think about it and justify it, and to think of it as a long-term project, you know, something that I'm going to be doing over the next couple of years. And so I've moved from just thinking about it, from talking about it, getting the stuff, still thinking about it, like in how I want to do it, and enjoying looking at like Greyhawk, you know, the campaign books, like, and looking at, you know, at that kind of stuff as to whether I want to include that kind of stuff or Forgotten Realms, but still continuing with my core games, playing my core games, working on the projects that I'm doing, setting aside like a time period where I'm going to paint that stuff and justifying not doing something else because I'm going to do this. Because I think that's for me important too. And so that's kind of the way I've been combating it, is just to try to be less sort of hyper decisive and energetic about going out and getting into things, and just being like, and my best examples recently were like how I didn't get into Adeptus Titanicus because I really wanted to, but then thought about it, and I actually spent all the money on French Indian War stuff for Sharp's Practice instead, you know, and just committed to the core game, said, no, I'm not getting into it. And so now I did go and get a bunch of stuff for Epic, but the older Epic stuff. But I have a lot of examples where I kind of do that. And I don't know, that's my way of combating it. I don't know. I'm not sure that you do combat it, Rusty. What do you think?
Well, I do combat it all the time. It's one of those things where I am constantly looking at different systems, and it's like I kind of like delve into it, kind of scratch the surface a little bit, see what it would take to get into it, and then I realize like I don't need it. It's like there's a little period of time where it's like if you don't buy anything or mess with it, it's like it's like I got to do this, kind of wears off, and then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, okay, and it's like I made my saving throw. Woo! Moving on. And now, like you said, there's some games where you can buy miniatures for, and there's overlap. And it's like Stryker and I, we both have a lot of historicals, World War II miniatures. He's got a bunch of Germans. I got some Americans, and I got my, you know, if you remember me painting some of them up, continuing on with and I have my Russians and stuff for the 28 mil stuff.
Yep.
Because we used to play a lot of, it was the Easy 8 game system, you know, Battleground back in the day, back in the 90s, we played a lot of that. And then we turned around, and now it's like, now they got bolt action, so they could be used for bolt action. But in a way, the miniatures are not being sort of wasted. They could be used for other systems that are now the flavor of the day. But there's other things that you just can't do anything with it. It's like when you buy them, it's like there's not too many places you can use your different like 40K stuff into. You know, you know there's not much overlap with certain armies. You see, yeah, you just kind of take a hit on that. I've been trying, and when it's, I realized I got into it was like Drop Zone Commander. I bought the rules for everybody, passed them out, and it's like, hey, everybody, let's play this, and it's like crickets. And it's like, okay, now I have these rules. It's like everybody has rules, no one wants to play. So now I've been slowly trying to sell off all that stuff. And then the game system, I think, is now defunct, I believe.
Oh, is it? Well, I know that I see a lot for Drop Fleet too, which is the other one they do, but I don't know if it's defunct or not. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's certainly a bit of a challenge to know what to do. Now, you kind of brought something up that made me think about this too, because I love painting the Old Hammer 40K stuff, like the Rogue Trader, and I'm open to picking up. There's so many open source type games. I'll call them open source, but they're these games now where people are writing a rule book, kind of like the Osprey, and you don't necessarily have to have a line of miniatures, to play the game.
I think you cut out on.
Oh, really? You can't hear me?
I think your sound's gone.
Let's see. Can't hear me, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
there you are.
Oh, you can. Okay. Can you hear me now? Hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
It's like a commercial. Hear me now? So, so as I was saying, there are a lot of these new games coming out where their rule writers are writing books in partnerships with publishers where they're not making money on miniatures, and they're basically allowing you to use whatever miniatures you want. So I suspect most of us are going to be able to, at a certain point, if not already, be able to use all of our miniatures for whatever we want, really. Like I am sort of still on a quest and looking for a great game, other than using, let's say, the Rogue Trader rules or second edition Warhammer 40K. I'm kind of looking for something to use my Old Hammer stuff with for 40K, smaller skirmish level games and stuff. But I'm really content in some ways to have projects that are painting projects now, that if I want to paint something, even though I don't get necessarily a chance to use it in a game right now, I'm going to maybe collect it. I have some Thousand Suns and some Zinch stuff that for Rogue Trader, early Warhammer stuff that I have set aside for a painting project in the future. And even though I have no plans on using them to play anything at this point, I'm still happy to collect them and to paint them and maybe use them someday in something. And so it doesn't create that headspace issue, of having all these rule sets and things just because, let's say, there's some miniatures I want to paint. I can just choose to use them however in the future or just collect them.
Yeah, it's got to the point now where I realize that today, if I do not buy another miniature and I just paint what I have currently that's in all my boxes and everything, I probably could paint for the next 4 or 5 years. I have that much when it comes to, and when I was digging through some stuff, I even found a whole bunch of fantasy 15 mil stuff.
Okay.
I was like, oh, a whole bunch of 15 mil elves. Oh, okay.
Is that the same manufacturer that you were showing on your channel that time? Like was it Black Tree and some others, or?
It was Black Raven Foundry. It was
Black Raven. Right. That's right.
Some of it's Black Raven. Some of it is just old stuff from like the 80s.
Okay. Nice.
That would go with the battle system, with the 15 mil stuff.
Cool. Awesome.
So it's like I'm gonna sit it all out. It's like organize it and see what I need and don't need anymore, and maybe figure out what to do with it.
Exactly. That's cool.
Because Stryker and I were kind of chatting. Was it this week? We were talking about 15 mil rules to use for fantasy. And because he has some 15 mil stuff, I got 15 mil stuff. Because he has a whole bunch of historical stuff like I have. Because we were the historical guys. Going way back in the day. Now both of us no longer have our I don't think he has his American Civil War, or it's just like I got rid of all mine. I got rid of my Napoleonic stuff too. So I think he's unloaded all his too. So, so I think he has a whole bunch of, was it Normans and Saxons, I believe is what he has, in Romans.
Nice. That's awesome. Could use those potentially for DBA too if you had them based the way you want to.
Yeah, I think they could be used for DBA.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we take a look at the comments real quick?
Yeah.
Because I think given our short time span, for those of you that have just joined us, and I think Iterant Hobbyists, hello. We had a number of people. We've had an abbreviated show today. I know Lord Draconum has also joined in. We've had an abbreviated show today because mostly my fault, but some update in my computer didn't allow me to join Rusty's stream, so we ended up going towards mine. I told him that I secretly, just needed more, not subscribers, but views, and so that's sort of my little passive-aggressive joke there. But it looks like we've got Stryker is talking about having he has ACW in 7-Year War and 15 mil. And we've got folks talking about 15 mil, Kings of War for 15 mil, according to Hot Dice Miniatures. Iterant Hobbyist said, so are you okay having that many minis not painted, Rusty?
Well, it's not a problem if you're not using them. It's one of those things, if you're using them, I will paint them. It's like one of those things where if I know I have a game system or that we're going to be playing, or I got an army I want to play, then they're going to get painted, because I don't like playing with anything that's not painted. It's a pet peeve with mine that another thing I always say is that a painted army plays better because it has more pride, type of thing.
Well, that's a whole nother subject, but it adds to our imaginations, right? I mean, like, the reason why we're not using cardboard counters. I mean, if we wanted to use cardboard counters, and just have something that was just a marker on the table, it didn't inspire us, then we wouldn't play miniature tabletop games. There's plenty of other options to game out there instead of miniatures, if you don't mind it. And so the painting of it, of course, inspires us. Hot Dice Miniatures also says, personally, I fight this problem by only playing mini agnostic games that fit my collection. Now, I'm assuming what he means by that, by mini agnostic games, maybe smaller games that by agnostic, I'm wondering if you mean just sort of like general, like is that like a general type game that you can bring different types of miniatures in? Maybe you can clarify that. That's my understanding of what he's saying, which I think is sort of fits the of a lot of the Blue Book games, like the Osprey Blue Book games. There's a lot of ones where you can bring a lot of your stuff in.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me. What that statement was, that it's one of those things where over the years when I was playing a lot of fantasy stuff, you'd get one of the worst things that GW had ever did, which they know works, is that you buy a box set. It's like, oh, the new edition comes out and here's the new box set. So what comes with the rules in it? So you would buy the new box and then you end up with like, oh, you get an army you don't have. So I'm like one of those people that, oh, I want to play those miniatures eventually. So I'm going to pick up a box of these guys, pick a box of those guys up, and kind of fill out the army so I can play it when I want to. And then they end up just sitting in the box, put together usually, just being ready to be painted if I do it. Right.
Hot Dice Miniatures, he clarified, he means like no miniature line attached to it, kind of like Frostgrave. And actually, Iterant Hobbyist brings up that point, the historical games like World War II, where you can use them for any rule set, as long as scale's okay, which oftentimes that can be flexible too, which totally agree. Like historical does provide a lot of opportunity with that.
Yeah, totally. Because with any type of historical system, if you both are playing 15 mils, and you got historical, they will match up one way or the other. The ranges might be slightly different in size. One range might be true 15s, the other one might be 16, 17s or so. But, it's still going to be, as long as they're similar base, you don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Dan Booman mentions that he said he tries to stick to a few miniature army collections. Like he collects the American War of Independence, World War II, Warhammer Fantasy, and Lord of the Rings all in 28 mil. I kind of similar like that with my core games too. like for the most part, like my French Indian War collection, 28 mil, like I'm not really looking at doing any other scale with that, even though I love the period. That's just a collection that I'll have the rest of my life, and I like to expand upon, and particularly terrain. You feel like it's an investment that pretty much any rule set that comes out with it, you could always use with it. And I think in a lot of ways that saves us from a lot of distraction. It's really nice to know what you like and it sounds stupid to say that, but sometimes we have to consciously tell ourselves, although everything looks good, what is it that we really like the most that we never get tired of? And like I know for you, Rusty, one example is BattleTech, and it's just something that you've played it for now 30 years. There's really no mystery that, you're not going to be selling this stuff probably. Even if you stop playing, I can't imagine you'd ever sell it. Right?
No, there's no way I'm going to sell my BattleTech. It's when I die, it goes to my son. It'd be one of those things where the will is like, you inherit my BattleTech division. So, or divisions, I should say.
Yeah.
There's more than a division worth of battle mechs and vehicles in each. But yeah, it's one of those things where there are certain cores that you just makes your juice flow, that you want to constantly play, or you want it. It's like I'm always, every once in a while, it's like BattleTech is a system that I buy miniatures for it that I may not play with, just because I don't have that miniature. I may not play with that miniature, but I'm going to buy it, paint it, and add it to the collection.
Right.
So eventually it may be used. Now, when it was like historicals, when we used to play like Napoleonics, is like I'd build this regiment, or I'd build this regiment, and then, or American Civil War, or in with the American War of Independence, and I would make, all right, I want the first Maryland unit's going to be painted up. All right, I got the first Maryland. Oh, I got to have the Virginian unit. I got to have this Continental unit. And you just start building, and pretty soon it's like, oh, this is getting out of control. But hey, if I'm playing this battle, I have to have that painted that color, this one this color, for those 15 mils.
Yeah.
And then
one of the things that we haven't brought up, you kind of did, in the sense that you talked about the cost of like all your codexes, and you've hinted at all the large number of miniatures. But I mean, I've said this a million times, but really, I'm convinced that we're in one of the most inefficient hobbies in the world for a distracted person. And like from a money and time perspective, it takes so much to paint an army in most cases. And yeah. I do find that for me, money is almost the least of it. And I don't mean to be pompous when I say that. It's not that I have a budget, and like I don't get lots of stuff that I'd like to, but really I find that the time painting and to get an army ready to play, and how many times have people painted for something and then they played with one of their friends once and then never played it again? Yeah. And oh my gosh, it's almost like, even though it might not be heartbreaking from the sense of you move on to most likely to something else and you're playing something else, and you're probably fine. When you think about it though, if you compare us to video gamers, that just buy something for like $60, slip it in, play it for a while, pull it out, never play it again. They lost $60, and a little bit of time, the game that they played, the time played the game is actually like what they want to do. Right. But with this stuff, it's the space it takes up. It's the time painting. It's the investment, the terrain table, like everything. It is a very resource and like sort of life energy draining hobby. Now, when I say it like that, it sounds like a negative. I don't mean it that way, because it's also inspirational. It's a stress reliever. It's a lot of great things. But when we actually just are constantly distracted, I find our hobby is one of the most inefficient hobbies in the world to do if you don't have focus.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could sit, like you said, you could sit around and spend $500 and buy an army, get it all up, you spend all the time putting it together, basing it, priming it, painting it, and then you get one game in. It's like you could spend hundreds and hundreds of hours painting it, and then you spend 2 hours playing it, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like setting up for Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner or something like that. You're just like all week you're planning it, buying all the materials, you put the meals together, you bake the cakes, you bake the pies and everything, and in 20 minutes you'll be like, and it's done. And you're like, it's like all that labor that went into it, and they're just done, and everybody goes away. And it's over. But it's and the hard part about it is keeping the attention span of everybody focused on your things that you want to play with.
Yeah.
I have my toys. I like this toy. I want to play with my toy all the time. And they're like, shiny thing, go. Hey, look over there. It's like goldfish, like herding cats or something to try to focus. Hey, come back here. We're going to play this game over here. Oh, let's go. Shiny thing. And they're off over this way.
Yeah.
And it's like all that time and effort. And then you get individuals that will, it's like they go out. It's like one of my friends that he's not on here, but he'll go out and spend $500 on, let's say, a 40K army. He'll play it once and then turn around and sell it and get a new army and go through the whole cycle again.
Yeah.
And like, what are you doing?
Well, and another thing, there's a lot of discussion we've been having about crossover between historical and I think Stryker actually made a comment above about how, like there's a lot of historical games and fantasy games you can reuse as well. He also mentioned that. One of the things that the Age of Magic for Saga is out now, and I'm holding off. It's another thing I've held off with. Like, I definitely want to play it, and because I'm sort of invested in Saga, it's one of the Saga universe books that I've committed to beyond Dark Ages. Like, I am pretty much rooted in Dark Ages for Saga. That's like my main thing I'm doing, the original. But then like when Crusades came out and when they had Aegis and Arthur, like all these other ones, they're just not, I'm not investing in those. I'm just sort of investing just in Dark Ages for my terrain table and just for everything. But Age of Magic came out. There's a lot of crossover. I've got a lot of fantasy miniatures. I love the Saga game. I can use my Dark Ages stuff because basically you can have Dark Ages stuff with monsters of Age of Magic and Wizards. Like you can really meld the two any which way you want. And then use your Book of Battles, which adds scenarios and stuff too. And so I see that as a nice opportunity because it's basically saying, you don't have to use these kinds of miniatures. You can use your Dark Ages stuff or even your Crusade stuff and mix in fantasy. They're really allowing you to kind of do what a lot of the blue books and a lot of these games like Hot Dice Miniature use the agnostic term, using games that have no miniature line. And Saga, Studio Tomahawk has adopted that. And so that one, I see myself likely getting. I'm kind of putting it off out there. I'm not rushing out to get it at this point. I want to actually play more version 2 of Saga. Like I've had some games and I've even tried out the Book of Battles, but I want to do a lot more. And then once I'm ready, and I've done enough playing that, then and have gotten that out of my system, then maybe I'll grab that, Age of Magic and mix it up. So this way I can add all these different kinds of monsters and wizards and spells and fantasy elements and combine my Warhammer Fantasy stuff with my Saga stuff, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah. It's like I think that the Saga system might be something I might want to look into to be able to use some of the other miniatures that we have for crossing over to other stuff. We do play the Frostgrave too. Mm-hmm. Mel and I do, and once in a while we get a game of that. And I think Stryker and we both like the Frostgrave. Now I don't know if the other two members of our crew that usually play with us are so hot into playing that as much as the two of us are, but it's one of those things where you can pull out and use any type of miniatures you have. Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about the Saga system and what was the fantasy side of it?
For Saga?
Yeah.
Age of Magic is the name of the book.
Okay, Age of Magic. So it's like using the Saga system, but it's another book added onto it.
Well, the way Saga is done is that they, for very low cost, they have a 20-page book, very nicely done. That's the core rules of Saga. And so it's just a very small book it's like $20. It's not like a lot of money. It's like an entry level thing. And all of their universe books, you use that as the core. And so basically with Dark Ages, I have the core rule set, that sort of entry level book you read just to get the basics of the rules. Then you have your universe book of the Dark Ages, which will give you all the armies. So not like a codex for each army, but all the codexes sort of together, with all of the equipment rules for Dark Ages, all of the, any sort of special characters like within your factions and special rules that might relate to your universe era. So they don't have like a Age of the Orient yet, but they're doing like a Japanese one in the future. Like they may have like some sort of weapons that you have in Japanese warfare with special rules only in that book, but they all follow the rules from the core book.
Yeah,
the only other book you need if you want to play a lot of expanded types of battles is they have the Book of Battles, which again works with all of the other universes. They're just scenarios that apply to all the universes. So
okay, so it's if you bought the core rule book and then you start adding on, and it's just like you can just add in much as you want to, or start pulling in other stuff as much as you want. And I could see someone like Bill would Landshank would be actually probably like something like that, where like with his Musty Wargamer challenge.
Oh yeah, because he's got miniatures that would fit. I'm sure he's got. And he says he can't wait for the Saga Samurai. I think I've heard Bill say that he's played Saga already.
Yeah.
But he said he can't wait for the Saga Samurai.
Yeah.
I got to imagine. I mean, like, and when we pick different stuff, when we get like overextended, I think one of the things that's important is sometimes if we like a lot of different things is to try to find different niches to satisfy what you're interested in. Like I have an appreciation for naval style games where you have that kind of approach. And for me, I kind of deal with it through Star Wars Armada. Like I like the big, huge hulking ships, and the kind of, tactics that you're basically dealing with in a naval style game, which is what I think to some degree Star Wars Armada at a basic level fulfills that for me. And, Saga fulfills a certain kind of thing. Like I like the battle board and the mechanic of Saga, and I don't have anything that plays like it. And so I don't feel like by getting into something else, I'm usually duplicating Saga. Even if I was to get another Dark Age game, I doubt it would be like Saga in most cases. And then, I have my French Indian War, and you just have your different ones that have your different style. Like I'm interested in Sharp Practice. That's more your dealing with shock and morale, and like dealing with a lot of things, but it's dealing with your sort of commanders and your commander's influence over your army, and keeping troops in the battle, and dealing with morale and things like that. And we have lots of games that do that. And for me, Sharp's Practice is probably the game that I'll have as my core game that deals with that.
Okay, yeah, I can see that where you're trying to find something that is a good crossover that fills that niche, that itch that you have. That it's like, for me, it's always been something. I'm always like play naval games of some type or another. Going way back, I always like to play the nautical ones of any type of the. And then that's why like Dystopian Wars kind of fills that. It's like playing with ships, and it's like, okay, you're kind of throwing fantasy, steampunk into it. Hey, what's not to like? Because you're kind of getting two things put together at the same time. And that's the one thing is like, I'm also into ships when it comes to space.
Yeah,
a good space opera is not a bad deal either. So
absolutely.
So it's like any way you could. Way back in the day, you had all these different miniature companies that would produce their own line of like warships or something, and then you would cross over and make your own rules, or use someone else's quick play rules or something, just for a while, just to figure out if it's something you like. And that's where we seem to kind of missing. It was like everybody expects today is that, all right, you have what are your rules? Where's your miniatures? Type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you don't have any miniatures for your rules? I'm not playing it then. So type of deal. So we seem to be moving away from that kind of thing. And in some ways it feels like.
I'm almost thinking it's going the opposite now. Where, I think with veteran gamers that have large collections, it's getting more to the point where it's not about, oh, what is this game and what are the components like in miniatures? It's more like, I have all these miniatures, what can I do with them now? Like, what are all the different ways? Like, how do you play these things? And so I do think that we're moving away a little bit from that.
I hope so. That's the way it used to be. It was that you go to a convention, it's like, oh, you got a set of rules. It's like no miniatures with it, but you can use these miniatures with these rules. It's like, oh, okay, that's fine. I got plenty of miniatures. It's like, no problem. Just hand me the rule book. I'll go with it. That type of deal. But it's like, but it has been, it's like you see in all these videos, and you look down through all the, like on YouTube nowadays, somebody will bring out, it's like, oh, where's the miniatures? Or where can I get these miniatures? Or you have miniatures? That's the thing. Everybody wants to have something that ties in with it.
Right. I'm just gonna go to the comments again real quick. We've had a lot of activity on the chat tonight.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Iterant Hobbyist says, focusing like as a principle, like this allows you to hold a massive market garden game on an 8x12 table. And I think that's a good point. Like he says, focus is key. I'm trying to focus the older guys around me who focused on 3 rule sets, 1 scale, and they simply build a huge collection over several years and really dive into a rule set. And I find that's appealing. Like, for me, I find that appealing, whether it be doing something like fantasy or whether it be something like a particular period. It's really nice to be able to just expand and expand and expand rather than just having a limited sort of experience and then moving on to another quick experience.
Yeah.
So I think that's really good. Yeah. So Dan Booman says, our hobby's like a Thanksgiving meal. Good point, Rusty.
Yeah, it is like a Thanksgiving dinner. Oh, do you read any of the Battletech novels? Oh, did you cut out on me again?
I didn't. Actually, everybody said before that they heard me, so I think I did cut out on you specifically.
Okay.
I might be cutting out on you specifically.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I do read the Battletech novels. Haven't bought one in a while because they seem to be hard to find anymore. They don't seem to be coming out as much as they used to be. It's one of those things where you'd see a Battletech novel hitting the shelf all the time. So,
did they have an end times?
They did. Well, it was one of the things where we had the clans invaded, and you had all the clan wars that went on.
Yeah. And
then they went back, and then eventually they went and found where the clan space was, and they invaded the clan space. And then they had the Dark Ages, which is the age that shall not be named type of thing, where we had a different company bought everything and kind of ruined it for a while. So
like they don't have a situation now where like they have just like an unmanageable number of realms that are pretty much anything you want them to be. So really it's nothing specific anymore. It's just whatever you want it to be, because it's basically there's so many alternate dimensions that you can just pretty much do anything you want, but then also there is really nothing specific either. It's really good for gameplay. You can pretty much do whatever you want.
So you have Earth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through 40 type thing. So we don't have superheroes on Earth 1 like we have here. This is Earth 1. We don't have superheroes, but on Earth 2, they got superheroes. Earth 3 was destroyed by superheroes. Yeah. Earth 4 has been invaded by demons, that type of thing. So.
Yeah. Well, my musty drink is over. I see you're still working on it. But yeah. I think we've had a pretty loyal audience tonight, staying with us the whole time, despite the fact that we had so many problems the first half hour. I do appreciate that, everybody. What do you think? I think it's probably about time to wrap up the show.
Wow.
You okay?
Yeah, it's like the sound started coming through my speakers. Like, interesting.
Maybe your headphone jack is loose in there or something.
Yeah, that could be. That might be the possibility.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We were going to do another topic, but we'll probably forward that one to next time, which will likely be on Rusty's channel. And we'll try to work out the bug with my connection with Chrome or whatever it is that's not connecting to Google Hangouts properly.
Yeah, that's a kind of a thing. It's like I had the solo Wargamers show type thing. Yeah.
Thanks everybody. So yeah, we just said Dan said fun show. Thanks everybody. Yeah, thanks everybody for stopping by, and we will see you next time. Thanks for all the great comments.
All right, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks over me again.
Yep, so. Absolutely. Okay, take care, everybody.
All right, later.